Bazball has been ragdolled and India have taken the series 4-1. But after that first match, it didn't seem that many people didn't think that we would end up with this final scoreline. So I ask, now that it's all said and done, how do you summarize India's performance in this series?
It's a fantastic performance, as you mentioned, Anirudh. That when we lost the first Test match, I thought the England team, perhaps even they thought that they dismantled the threat of India on Indian pitches, especially the spinners. Ollie Pope's 196 was a marvelous innings, but that seemed to be the end of England's, brilliance, so to speak. I'm not taking anything away from the bowlers. Tom Hartley with 22 wickets, Shoaib Bashir with 17 wickets. They bowled splendidly. Rehan Ahmed got 11, Jamie Anderson got 10. So the bowlers have done their job, but the batting has floundered, barring Zach Crawley, who I thought was consistent. More than anything else, they've lacked consistency and they've lacked the big runs from the big guns. Joe Root, Johnny Bairstow, and particularly Ben Stokes, less than 200 runs, 199 runs in 10 innings is a big, big letdown by Ben Stokes. So while his captaincy was marvelous, especially in the manner in which he handled his young bowlers, his young spinners, his batting, and what amazed me, Anirudh, is that this, as the captain of the team, he seemed to let things move in one dimension. It was a one-dimensional performance by England. It was, almost like a slog fest. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And barring the first test, it didn't work. So there was no change in tactics. There was no kind of plan B. Forget about, if not plan B, there was no plan C. In fact, there was no plan except plan A. And that's where I think India was so brilliant. After losing the first test, they actually rejigged their strategy. And one has to give credit to Rohit as the captain and, of course, Rahul Dravid as the chief coach. And then all the players, the stellar players. Look at India's performance, the consistency. And I'm not talking of only Yashasvi Jaiswal, 700 plus runs. Shubman Gill, 452 runs. Jadeja getting 100 runs for Sarfraz, runs for Jurel. But look at what the seniors have also done. Rohit Sharma, 2 centuries in this series, and both coming at crucial times, especially the first one. At that stage, I think in that match, India were 30 for 3. He came and made 100. Bumrah amongst the wickets. Ashwin picking up the most wickets. Jadeja picking up 19. Kuldeep Yadav picking up 19. So it's the young and the veterans all contributing. And tactically, I thought that they kind of slowed things down, waiting for England to make the mistakes of which they made plenty. They altered their length, and their line, how to bowl to which batsman. It was just marvelous to watch how India came back so strongly into this series and then won everything. I mean, we won earlier also, commanding. We've beaten Australia 4-0 in a series at home. But I thought this was a marvelous win because England thought, or it seemed like they believed it come with a lot of preparation, preparing in the UAE, mid-series going back again to the UAE to prepare for winning the series. All of that came to naught. And, as you mentioned, Bazball became a kind of a rag doll.
So yeah, you were mentioning about how they've been sort of one-dimensional. So I don't even know what Bazball is anymore. I'm not quite sure because the definition keeps changing. But whatever it is, do you think now England will stick to it, double down on it, or do you think this could mark the beginning of the end for Bazball?
Well, I don't know. I think they more or less messed up their prospects of making it to the World Test Championship final. I mean, you lose so badly. I know it's an away series and they'll get some chances playing at home. But remember, they've got a series coming up against Australia, and that's going to be really tough. I mean, India and Australia were the two teams they had to fare well against to kind of make it to the World Test Championship. While the paths cleared up for India, it's almost closed. The doors have closed or shut for England in the World Test Championship. In the bilateral series is a different issue altogether. But I think they'll be disappointed that, it can't work only on gush and bluster and, like a geezer. There has to be more substance to baseball. And I personally feel that in Test cricket, I mean, the dynamics of Test cricket are so different from white ball cricket. Sometimes it's important to take a step back to take 2 steps ahead. Tactically, it's almost like playing chess. But if you keep thinking that every time I can just go out there and bang the ball to the fence or over it, it might just come to, it might become a misadventure as it has now. And baseball, let me again emphasize, is not only about batting. So in the bowling department, they've done really well, and I must give credit to Ben Stokes where it's due that he captained these two young debutant bowlers extremely well. But if the batsmen don't provide even 280, 300 runs consistently, leave aside 400, 450, look at the last test match, it was almost a featherbed, and you don't total 400 runs in 2 innings, then I'm afraid that there's something really seriously wrong with the batting.
Yeah. And as for India, often lost in this whole discussion with Jadeja and Ashwin is Kuldeep Yadav, who is the hero of this match. He's won the man of the match, and he's bowled brilliantly and also batted quite a bit in this series. So, with this performance throughout this series, do you think he's making a case for him to be undroppable, especially in Indian conditions?
Yeah, I mean, Anirudh, it reminds me there was a time, I think it was 2017 or 18, when Ravi Shastri was the coach, and he actually mentioned that Kuldeep Yadav is the number one spinner for India overseas, when they're playing. So I see him playing a lot more overseas. He's far more mature. It's been 7, 8 years since he made his debut. He's had his problems, he's struggled, he's been out of the team, he's had to fight and come back. And remember, it's not easy to find a place, even when you're playing at home, when you had Ashwin, Jadeja, and Akshar doing so well. So he's forced his way back into the team, and as you mentioned, he's batted well. His fielding has picked up. I think that, and what's what's quite fascinating for me is almost every Indian spinner that you see now is virtually an all-rounder. Ashwin, Jadeja, Akshar Patel, and now Kuldeep Washington Sundar, who's on the fringes, and now you've got Kuldeep, who's also batting really well, batting correctly, making runs. I wonder is that a lot of competition within domestic tournaments and the IPL for these players to try and get into the test team or even in the white ball team, because then you have to do something with ball and bat or bat and ball. So whatever it is really helping India a lot.
Yeah. And lastly, we'll end with a silver lining for England, or rather a blonde lining, which is Jimmy Anderson taking 700 wickets, becoming the first fast bowler in cricket history to do so. And he's been doing it for 22 years, and he's still arguably the best bowler England still have. So, a few words on old Jimmy there, Hayaz.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's been absolutely marvelous as a cricketer. Somebody who's been playing for 2 decades and more, and a fast bowler. It's not a spinner. Or a batsman. We've had players who play into their 40s in the past. Not so much nowadays because there's so much more cricket. But I think the remarkable part about Jimmy Anderson is that his repertoire of skills is fantastic, as we know. Look at his stamina. Look at his fitness. Look at his motivation. Look at his drive to excel, and he just doesn't seem to be kind of getting, a lot of people get fed up. He's not even getting slightly bored of being in a test match. When this series started, everybody thought, so did I, that Jimmy Anderson would play 2, at most 3 matches. He's played 4, and he's reached a landmark of 700 wickets, which I think for a fast bowler may remain unsurpassed. It's the milestone, the landmark itself, and then of course the longevity of his career, which makes it all the more remarkable. This story.
Yeah. So now that the whole series is over, we'll be bringing you the IPL, which is starting in a couple of weeks. So that's it for this episode of Sports Room. See you next time.
Thanks, Anirudh. Catch up soon.